Hi, it's Josh McDonald here, and I wanted to talk today a little bit about trauma. A lot of people, when they hear trauma, when they think about trauma, they think about those big life-altering events. But trauma is not necessarily a big life-altering event. Yes, it can be things like abuse, it can be things like abandonment, it can be things like losing a loved one at a very young age. Those are traumatic events. But what a lot of people don't seem to understand or to realize is that small behaviors can also be a traumatic event for a child. And so I wanted to share with you some of the things that most people believe are normal parenting behavior and accept it as something that's normal that could actually have caused trauma to yourself or to your children now, but mostly to yourself as a child. And what I want to start with is knowing and providing that understanding that no one is doing this to you on purpose necessarily, that often the reason that your parents treat you like this and that your parents parent you like this is because that's how they were parented as children. And so what you find is that people that are causing you trauma are people that were traumatized themselves, and they were traumatized by people that were traumatized themselves, and so on. So it goes back quite a while. So I don't want to be putting blame on anyone here, but I do want to make it clear that trauma is trauma, and that reacting to a traumatic experience and creating beliefs and patterns from a traumatic experience is going to be the same outcome no matter how severe that trauma is or how often that trauma happens. Once the traumatic event happens and you've created that belief is just as insidious for you as if the traumatic event was a huge traumatic event or if it was a really tiny traumatic event. So here are some examples of some of the smaller traumatic events, some of the smaller behaviors and patterns that you might come across. As a parent, you might have had this yourself, you might have seen this with other parents, you might even be doing some of this behavior yourself as a parent. So the first example that I've got is where you teach your children that they've got no significance, that they're not a significant child. So these are things like when they start to get upset and they have feelings and their emotions are getting hurt, they start to get upset and the response of the parent is, if you're going to cry, I'll give you something to cry about. This one probably doesn't happen as much anymore because I think physical punishment is something that most parents are more aware of now and try not to do, but it's definitely something that happened in the previous generations. Another example is where kids, don't enjoy the food that they're eating and their parents' response is, you're going to eat that up because there are starving kids all around the world who would love that food. And so you're teaching the children basically that the feelings that they're having and the reactions that they're having to things around them are not valid. They've got no significance. And so you grow up as an adult believing that you don't have any significance and you start to people please. And another example of where you're teaching your child that they've got no significance is being dismissive of the child because they're a child. So, for example, where you're having a family lunch and there's an adult's table and a children's table, and the child comes to sit at the parents' table or the adult's table, and they're told, no, you have to go sit at the children's table. Or where the child doesn't want to go out and play with the other kids, they want to sit just at the parents' table, just sit there listening, and the child's told, no, you have to go out and play with the kids, you're a kid. It's being dismissive of the child's wants and desires at that time, and they're being told that they don't have any significance. What they want, what they feel, isn't significant. Another example of a belief that's created. So those were all about teaching a child that they have no significance. Another example is teaching a child that they deserve to be abandoned, basically. And these are the cases where the child might have two parents and both parents have to work full time and don't have any time to spend with the children. The child then has to go to after school care and before school care because the parents are at work and there's no one else to look after them. And then when they do get home, they're too tired to really do anything with the child. And this creates a sense of abandonment, and it tells the child that they don't have as much value as the parent that's working. And again, these are, this isn't the fault of the parent. Sometimes these things happen, you need to make ends meet. So this isn't about blame. Another example is where the parent can't actually care for the child. So they may have mental health problems themselves, they may have addictions, they may have things that prevent them from being able to care for their child. And as a result, the child has to be given to another caregiver, such as a grandparent or an auntie or an uncle. That again creates a feeling of abandonment for the child. Another example, so I've spoken through creating a belief that the child's not significant, creating a belief that the child deserves to be abandoned. Another example is creating a belief that everything that the child says or does is wrong. So anything that you do is the wrong thing. And that this, when you grow up, ends up being the belief that everything that I touch turns to shit. Everything that I touch is just wrong, and everything that I do is wrong, and I can't do anything right, I can't get anything right. I always spend all of my money. It's that sort of thing. So this comes from being told that your actions are wrong. So everything that you do are wrong. And this is usually a child that's always in trouble when they're growing up. It's from when you're being told that your thoughts are wrong. So if you're a child and you disagree with an adult and you're told not to disagree with the adult because you're a child, it's basically being told that the way that you think and the things that you do are wrong. And a big example is the parent that says it's my way or the highway, where the child wants to do something, but they're told no because they're living under their parents' roof. And they're told that what they want to do essentially is the wrong thing. You're going to do what I do because I know what's right. Unsafe environment. So teaching your child that the environment that they're in is not safe is also a really big one. So this is the parents who create an atmosphere of having no privacy. The child doesn't have a room that they can go into where they can feel safe in their own room. The parent doesn't knock when they enter the room, but the child's expected to knock if they were to enter another room. These are things where you're removing the boundaries of the child. They're not allowed to have privacy in their own rooms because it's in the parent's house, where the child doesn't get the option of having a voice. So anytime that they speak up, they're told to be quiet. Children should be seen and not heard. This is an unsafe environment for the child because they're being told that what they're saying and the things, when they do speak, that they basically don't have a voice, that they're not safe. It's not okay for them to have a voice. And it's those parents as well that are really strict on their children that create an environment of being unsafe. And these are the children that grow up and they feel that any environment that they're in is an unsafe environment. And this is usually the leading cause of anxiety, is not feeling safe in the environment that you're in. It creates anxiety. And the final one that I want to talk through is the belief that the child only matters as an extension of the parent. And so this is the case where Dance Mums is a perfect example. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the show, Abby Lee Miller, her dance studio on the Dance Mums. It's where the parent is teaching the child that they only matter as an extension of the parent. So they're only as good as their achievements. And so this is for parents, for example, who were soccer players when they were growing up and they forced their children to become soccer players and then push them to become better at it, even though it's not necessarily a sport that they enjoy. It's for people who were dancers and teach their children that they have to become dancers and they have to be the best dancer. It's also for those parents who compare their children to other children when they're around other parents. Oh, my son is the best at handwriting. My daughter is the best at maths. Oh, she got such high grades at maths. When they're comparing and really the parent is just proud of what the child's doing. But what they're teaching the child is that they only matter as an extension of the parent. So if you've been through any of these sorts of things, and now hearing them, you can see how minor they can seem, and how normal they can seem as well. But also you can see the beliefs that you create as an adult later in life. So if you've gone through any of this, and some of these are the thoughts and the behaviors and the actions that you had to act in when you were growing up, one of the things that you can do is you can go back and you can reparent yourself now. So as an adult, this is the experience that you had as a child, but as an adult, you don't need to rely on that experience. During that time, you may have created a belief, and that belief has then created a pattern for you later in life. So you can go back to that belief. You can go back to that point in time. You can go back to your inner child that's still that age, that still believes that way, that still thinks that way, that created that belief at that time, and you can reparent that child. And you can teach that child, that the inner child, the version of yourself that's still that young child, that still craves that attention, that still wants to know that they matter, that they deserve attention. You can teach them that they actually do matter. So what you can do is you can hand on your chest, hand on your belly, take those deep belly breaths that I've been talking about. To breathe all the way down into your belly and breathe out. And just really connect with that inner version of yourself, that self, that version of yourself that still believes these things. And you can teach yourself that you do matter. So all it is saying to yourself things like, I matter, I am enough, I am significant, I have significance, what I have to say matters, and I do have a voice. It's safe for me to use my voice. It's finding all of those things that you were taught as a child and reteaching yourself, becoming your own parent and reparenting yourself so that you no longer need to believe those beliefs that you had as a child. If you've enjoyed this information and you want to try hypnosis, feel free to check out my free hypnosis track. It is on unlimitedconfidence.com.au. Just pop in your name and your email address so I know where to send it, and I'll send it over to you. If you want more information about hypnosis and hypnotherapy, you can also go over to my main website, which is joshmcdonald.com.au.